Today I'd like to present to you my research findings. I've done research over metacognition, and I titled my research Understanding Students' Metacognitive Learning Process to Improve Learning. Metacognitive process, In Boston Latin in 1635, the first public school was established. The education consisted of traditional English methods of family, church, community, and apprenticeship. Girls were not considered for these schools. The purpose of the schools was to help boys get into Harvard. Learning is a premeditated change in behavior as a result of experience. Behaviorism remains a very important part in the field of education and can be used to explain a portion of the learning process. There are three major types of behavioral psychology. The first major type we'll discuss is classical, the second is operant conditioning, and the third is observational learning. Classical conditioning is the neutral stimuli. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between classical conditioning and operant conditioning. But in classical conditioning, there will always be a neutral stimuli. There will be no punishment and no reward. The behavior that becomes a natural effect to an unbiased cause. In this picture here, you'll see the kids with their hands raised. One of the ways we use this in school is during morning procedure. Whenever the bell rings for the morning to begin, then students raise their hands, and that bell triggers them, and they automatically respond with the hand in the air, and they're told when their hand is up, their voices are off. And so this is used in order to create behavioral patterns, in order to teach students that we do things at certain times because of a certain cause. Operant conditioning has positive and negative consequences. A good example of this might be if a student doesn't do their work as they're supposed to, if they're sitting at their desk playing around and off in La La Land, they might be told, if this isn't done, you don't get to go to recess. That would be a natural consequence to not getting their work done and doing what they were supposed to be doing. And also, it can also have a positive consequence. Teachers use clip charts a lot. If a student's had a really good day, they've been a good friend, they've been a positive role model, they've done something to stand out to that teacher, they may have them move their clip up, and that is a positive reinforcement. So the operant conditioning includes positive and negative reinforcements to something that you're wanting the students to complete. Observational learning. Learning new behaviors by observing the behaviors of others. Monkey see, monkey do. That's a very, very common phrase. Here you see the mom wearing the high heels, and so you see a little girl trying on mama's high heels. Students watch us. Teachers are a perfect model for the students. They model how we read, they model how we write, they model how we act, how we talk. They model everything we do. They're watching us, and it's important to make sure that we are showing them an example because it is what they will learn. Metacognition refers to the knowledge, awareness, and control of one's own learning. Metacognition is thinking about thinking. When you understand how you learn, how you think, how you're going to process this knowledge, think about how I'm feeling. Think about what I'm thinking. Think about what I'm seeing, what I'm wondering, what I'm noticing. When we think about all those things and we piece them together, it helps us to create knowledge for ourselves. Metacognitive strategies as tools. Let's try teaching children how to think instead of what to think. Metacognitive tools help students to figure things out on their own. Rather than teaching them factual information that they're going to memorize, learn, and forget, using metacognitive strategies teaches them to figure things out on their own, teaches them how to think, teaches them how to think for themselves. One of the ways that this can be presented in the classroom is by keeping a journal. Journals help students reflect, record thoughts and ideas. It can be used as a study tool. You can monitor student learning, assess understanding or lack of. A wonderful visual aid for seeing student growth, shifts learning into the student's hands. The journals become something that students are very proud of. They develop a sense of ownership because it's their work. It's a piece of who they are and what they know and what they've learned. And I think they're a wonderful tool for parent-teacher conference because it's really cool to see this is what my son or daughter was doing at the beginning of the year. This is what they're doing now at the end of the year, and it shows that growth. And it's really a neat tool to have to look at so you can see how they have grown and what they've improved at and what's been a challenge for them. Questions to consider when you're having students write their journal. Ask themselves, what was easiest for me to learn this week and why? Why was that easy for you to learn? Understanding that this was easy because I learned best this way helps students in the future as they begin studying and as they grow and get older and they become expected to be more in control of their own education into the high school and college years. What was most challenging for me to learn and why? What study strategies worked well as I prepared for my exam? Did you like flashcards? Did you like fill-in-the-blank notes? Did you like studying with someone? Did you like studying as a team with other people? Or do you prefer to study on your own? A lot of kids, students, teenage years, they like music when they're playing. They feel that helps them. Myself, I do not. I like it completely quiet. But younger kids might like music on. It helps them to not lose focus. What strategies didn't work well? What will I do differently next time? This is really important. What will I do differently next time? Because when they're thinking about how can I do this differently, they're thinking about what went well, what was challenging, what strategies worked. So they can take the strategies that didn't work and replace them with strategies that did work so that they're more successful. So understanding what will I do differently next time is very, very, very important, and it's definitely a higher learning skill. There are different kinds of journal formats. One kind is mind maps. This is a picture of a mind map. In the center, you might put what you're mapping. Maybe you're talking about World War II, and here you would put World War II. And then you would branch off of that different ideas, maybe who we fought, why we fought, who some of the commanders might be, and then you would branch off that idea into different ideas. And when students get all these ideas mapped out, they'll start seeing the connection between the different ideas and how all their information pieces together. Another great way is blogs. If you have the technology available in your classroom, blogs are a great way for students to journal. It also is a neat way because they can share their blogs with other students and they can share, this is what works for me, and then it gives students different ideas that they can use. Wikis, I've never used that. I don't really know much about that. It's probably not something I could explain very well. And then diaries, where they just keep a simple written out diary of what they've learned. Another strategy that is used a lot is a think aloud. We start using this as early as preschool years. Basically, in a think aloud, you're reading a book out loud to the class. And there are certain things you're going to do before you read. There are certain things you're going to do during you read. And there are certain things you're going to do after you read. before you read, there are some questions to ask. It says, what story clues are in the time and pictures? So you look at the cover. If it's a picture book, you walk through, you look at the pictures, you think about the pictures, you think about what you know and what you're seeing and how they might be related. What does the story, is the story real or make-believe? If they're frogs standing up and dressed up, it's probably make-believe. But if they're real pictures instead of illustrations, there's a good chance that that is a true story, that it's a fiction or nonfiction. What will the main character need or want? Sometimes by the title, you can tell if the main character is going to be in trouble, or if it's their birthday, it might say Happy Birthday Frog. If the title is Happy Birthday Frog, then you can assume that it's Frog's birthday, and then use the picture to judge, are there party hats, are there balloons, are they going to have a surprise party? Different things like that. While you're reading, it's important to stop every so often and talk about what you've read. Talk about the predictions that you've made. Are your predictions right? Can you fix your predictions to make them right? What predictions do you have about what's going to happen in the future in the story? And then after you read, there's questions you can ask after you read to help students become more aware of their learning. What did you like about the story? What did you not like about the story? What feelings do you have about the story? How are the characters' feelings or actions different at the end of the story? What is the author trying to tell me? What does the author want you to get from that book? What was his purpose? Mnemonics is a very, very cool tool. I especially like it in mathematics because math, to me, I personally believe, is the hardest subject to teach because it is so difficult for many students to understand. And with mnemonics, I feel that it's very useful because it gives students an easy guide. You know, they may not remember how to multiply in the parentheses because that is a very challenging process. But they can remember this face. It gives them a very good visual. If they can remember this face and they can remember the man with the big nose, then they can be more successful. Because you see here, the eyebrows tell them to multiply x times x and -3 times 5. And then his smile shows that they need to multiply x times 5, and his nose shows they need to multiply -3 times x. So if they can remember this face, then they can remember all the different numbers that they have to multiply by. And it helps them to be more successful when there's so many different strategies and so many different types of mathematics and skills in mathematics. If they can remember mnemonics to help them solve problems. A very, very popular one used in primary grades is the KWL chart. In the KWL chart, you have K, what you already know. This you would do before reading. You would talk to students. It can be done out loud as a class. It could be done in groups. It could be done individually. Whatever you choose to do as a teacher, whatever you feel your class is capable of. In this column, you're going to write what you know about the subject. If the book is about apples, then you're going to write everything you know about apples. And then in this question, in this section, it's your W, what I want to know. So here you're going to ask yourself questions about this book. What do I want to learn when I read this book? And then after you're done reading, the L is for learned, what you learned. So did you answer your questions? Did these questions get answered while you read? Now, is there something you know now that you didn't know before and that you didn't even have, you didn't question it? So it gets students thinking about what they read and how that applies to them. It helps them to reflect on the story. Here's a concept map. They're similar to mind maps. You have a plant, and then we're talking about all the different parts of the plant.